one of you was very curious about this notion: is enlightenment evolving? This is the question I heard that somebody had that they wanted me to answer. Is that true? Was that you?
That's Anubhav, and he had this question, the one who hosted you today, and he had this question about the absolute. If the absolute is constant, or is there something which is absolute constant, or it is ever evolving? So Anubhav, would you like to put the question again to the master? The question that you always had, in a more brief manner, in a smaller manner. So I would like Anubhav to get the answers on.
Sure. While I was meditating, so this was the question that came in my mind, and the question was such that we are in a constantly evolving world, and we are learning from our experiences. Since we keep learning, our consciousness keeps expanding. Because we are a part of the cosmic consciousness, now if we are expanding constantly, is the cosmic consciousness also expanding, or is the cosmic consciousness something which is absolute?
Well, I think it's a very good question. It's a fantastic question. It's a profound question, and I'm going to do my best to try and answer. It's a very complicated question. So, first of all, we want to speak about what is the nature of the absolute? What's the nature of God? What's the nature of the absolute? So the absolute is both fully self-actualized, fully complete, fully realized on one hand. Brahman is absolutely complete, self-realized and self-actualized. And he is also in a state of becoming. He's also evolving. So God, or the absolute, or Brahman, is both fully realized, fully complete in all aspects. Cannot possibly be improved. It is a state of absolute perfection. Brahman is a state of absolute perfection that cannot be improved upon. This is the realization of the greatest realizers and the greatest masters, on one hand. I'm getting some background voices in my ears. Good. So Brahman is absolutely fully realized already, always already full and complete. The nature of Brahman, or the nature of the absolute, is always already full and complete, always already perfect. So that which is perfect can't be improved upon. So this is the nature of the absolute. This is the nature of Brahman. This is the nature of God, on one hand. But on the other hand, Brahman, or the absolute, which is inherently always full and perfect, is also in a state of becoming, is also evolving, and is also in a state of ever-completing complexification. So the universe is not a static place. The universe is in a state of becoming, is in a state of constant creative evolutionary becoming. The universe is in a state of growth and infinite complexification and infinite emergence. So out of timeless, formless, beginningless, and endless emptiness or nothingness, a creative process was unleashed. And a creative process began about 14 billion years ago, and this creative process is still continuing. And in the midst of this creative process, human beings emerged. Apparently only about 200,000 years ago, human beings emerged. Out of this mysterious creative process, human beings emerged. And what made human beings so extraordinary was that human beings are the only forms of life that have this miraculous capacity for self-reflective awareness. In other words, in human consciousness exists the ability to be aware of awareness. Dogs and cats and birds and snakes have the experience of consciousness, but they don't have the capacity to be aware of consciousness. Human beings are the only forms of life that have the capacity to be aware of awareness or to be aware of consciousness. And this is what makes human beings so unique in the evolution of the universe and the evolution of life. So what's most miraculous about this evolutionary process is that in human consciousness and in human cognition, there's this miraculous capacity for self-reflective awareness, or for consciousness to become aware of itself. And within this miraculous capacity of self-reflective awareness, or consciousness being aware of itself, the creative process that we've been speaking about, the creative process of infinite becoming, simultaneously gains the capacity to awaken to itself or to become aware of itself. So in human beings, evolution, or the creative process that is the universe in a state of constant becoming, becomes self-aware, which means that in human beings alone, in the unique consciousness of human beings, the universe gains the capacity to become self-conscious or to become aware of itself. So when the universe becomes self-aware, becomes aware of itself, in the self-reflective awareness of highly evolved human beings, the creative process becomes conscious, becomes self-aware. So human beings have the unique capacity to realize, awaken to, and become aware of the ground of being, the timeless, formless, beginningless, and endless womb of creation. So it's a place where time doesn't exist, and where space doesn't exist, and where mind doesn't exist, where no thing exists except a primordial transcendental mystery. So human beings have the capacity to realize this ultimate mystery. And this is what, for example, the Buddha realized, this ultimate mystery. And human beings also have this simultaneously the miraculous capacity to become aware of the creative process, of the evolutionary impulse, of the energy and intelligence that created the universe and that's creating the universe. And to be aware that out of this timeless and formless emptiness, this nothingness, this isness, this beingness, this creative unfolding is emerging and has been emerging. So the answer to your question is that the universe is both being, immortal and absolute, and becoming. The universe is still, the absolute is stillness and emptiness and timeless and formless, and free from becoming, and is becoming at the same time. Both are happening simultaneously, and both are the expression of Brahman or the expression of God. Are you still there, Mr. Arubhav? Is he still there, or should I continue to speak?
Yeah, hi. I'm still here, and I'm trying to absorb the wisdom that you've been sharing.
So my answer to your question is that the universe is both the absolute, the nature of Brahman, the nature of God, is both timeless and formless and beginningless and endless, transcendental nothingness, that is absolutely static and unmoving and untouched by anything that ever happens in time. That is the absolute. And the absolute also gave rise to the creative process. This timeless, formless emptiness, which is the womb of creation, gave rise to time and space and form and life and mind, and all this, and the creative process that is the evolving universe, that is the manifest universe, is emerging from this timeless, formless emptiness. And both are Brahman. One is unmanifest Brahman, and the other is manifest Brahman, but both are Brahman. But manifest Brahman and unmanifest Brahman is a paradox. Because the unmanifest Brahman is uncreated, unborn, unbecome, timeless, formless, and empty. And manifest Brahman is the entire evolving universe that's in a state of becoming. The universe is on a journey of becoming. It's a journey of endless complexification and higher development. And because first there was light, then there was energy and matter, and from energy and matter there emerged life, and from life, mind. And this whole miraculous process is continuing, and it's going to continue eternally into the unimaginable future. So Brahman is both being and becoming. Brahman is both timeless, formless, beginningless, and endless, infinite, inconceivable, transcendental being. That's when in India when we chant Om, is the vibration of being, of timeless, formless. The freedom of being is Om. But Om, or timeless, formless freedom of being is only half the picture of Brahman. Brahman also took a leap, and Brahman took form as the whole evolving universe. And you and I are part of Brahman in a state of evolution. And the most, as I was trying to explain a few minutes ago, the most extraordinary aspect of Brahman, who's in a state of becoming, is this miraculous capacity that's emerged in human beings, this capacity of self-reflective awareness. Because in human consciousness and human cognition, awareness gains the capacity to be aware of itself. Consciousness gains the capacity to be aware of itself. So God or Brahman can know himself and herself through human consciousness in a way he can't through the consciousness of a snake or a dog or a horse or a tree or an ecosystem. So in human consciousness, Brahman gains the capacity for self-knowing and self-cognition in a way that's not possible in other forms of life, which makes human beings which makes our presence in this universe so profound and so extraordinary.
Andrew, that raises one more question in my mind. And so if we're saying that the cosmic consciousness is in a constant state of becoming, and it is also being, so
it's both at rest and in a state of becoming at the same time.
Yes,
it's a paradox.
Yes.
On one side, there's no movement. There's infinite rest and infinite being. That's always perfect.
Yeah.
On one side.
Yeah.
And the other side is this infinite state of becoming and infinite creativity.
Right. So in humans, we are all aware that in humans, there are some people who are more evolved than some other people. So is it that in the entire human race, we are seeing all the stages of evolution right now at this particular moment of time?
No, we're not seeing all the stages of evolution. We're seeing evolution at a particular stage. We can see where we've come from. Where we can see where we've come from, but where we're going in the future is as yet unimaginable. Because there are higher states of consciousness and higher states of cognition and higher levels of complexity that we are not yet at the stage that we can actually even able to conceive of them. They will come into being in the future, but they don't exist yet. So from where we are now, we can see where we've come from, and we can glimpse the immediate future, but we don't know where we're going to be in 1,000 years, and we don't know where we're going to be in 10,000 years, and we don't know where we're going to be in 100,000 years or 200,000 years or 1,000,000 years. It's inconceivable. How consciousness is going to evolve and what consciousness is going to be capable of in its infinite creativity 1,000,000 years from now is beyond imagination. So the universe is in a state of constant innovation, and human beings are playing a very significant role in the capacity of consciousness to innovate and to create itself anew. Human beings are the only forms of life that are capable of innovation and creativity. Human beings are programmed to give rise to that which is new, that which has never existed before. So human beings are driven to give rise to that which is new, that which has never existed before. And all truly great geniuses, whether it's in art or music or science or politics, all geniuses give rise to something that never existed before. Great geniuses give rise to that which never existed before. So there's a force in the universe called the evolutionary impulse. The evolutionary impulse is the force of creativity in the universe that when it awakens to itself in human beings, those human beings become geniuses. And those geniuses give rise to something that never existed before. So the universe is trying to create itself anew through us. It's not Andrew or Patraji as individuals. It's the energy and intelligence that created the universe. It's trying to create itself anew at a higher and more complex level through creative geniuses. So that's why when Einstein realized his theory of relativity, the world was never the same, because this was a new idea It was a new concept. It was a new way to understand things. When the Buddha had his enlightenment, his understanding of enlightenment was a revolution at that time. So he had a new unprecedented insight about the nature of moksha, about the nature of consciousness. So what's very fascinating is to see that the universe is constantly trying to reinvent itself at higher and more complex levels, and higher and more complex levels, and higher and more complex levels. But to do that, it needs to do it through the forms of life that it created. So you are and I am not merely the human beings we appear to be, but we are really the energy and intelligence that created the universe, realizing itself or awakening to itself through the human beings that we appear to be. But our human beingness, our maleness, our femaleness, and our relative egos are just vehicles. They're not really who we are, and they're not the reason that we're here. I believe, it's my understanding, that we're here to co-create the universe with the energy and intelligence that created in the first place that's creating it right now. But in order to do that, we have to become enlightened, or evolutionarily enlightened. We have to realize who we really are. I'm not merely Andrew Cohen, who was born in New York City in 1955, but I'm the energy and intelligence that created the universe and that's creating the universe right now, awakening to itself through the body, mind, and personality of Andrew Cohen, who happened to be born in New York City in 1955, and who realized when he met his guru that his body, mind, and personality was just a vehicle, and it's not really who he is. It's a vehicle for what? Vehicle for consciousness. The body, the mind, and the personality is a vehicle through which consciousness can evolve. And so when I realize my body, my mind, and my personality is not who I am, but is merely a vehicle through which the energy and intelligence that created the universe can consciously create itself, we discover a completely different reason to exist, a completely different reason to be ourselves. And I think that's the whole point of moksha, the whole point of enlightenment.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you. That was like, I've been looking for this answer for quite a long time, and you've answered the question very well.
So along this question, we want to understand that the universe is evolving, and the universe has an outside and an inside. And the outside of the universe is matter and energy, and the inside of the universe is consciousness and subjectivity. So the universe is evolving inwardly and outwardly. And when human beings experience the spiritual impulse, when we just experience the spiritual impulse as the desire to become more conscious, when I awaken to a spiritual impulse and I feel a desire to become more conscious, what's really happening is the universe is trying to become more conscious through me. My ego thinks this is my spiritual desire, my spiritual need, but in fact, it's really the universe trying to evolve through me, or the energy and intelligence that created the universe trying to evolve through me.
Right. Andrew, we have a couple of more questions for you.
Yeah.
So what is your thought on the current pandemic that is going on around the world, that is the coronavirus? And how do you think that this lockdown will help in human evolution?
Well, I hope. I have no big theories about this particular pandemic. I have no big theories about it, but I hope this will help us all to become more human, more loving, more compassionate, more caring about the environment. I hope this will help us to become less materialistic, less egotistical, more interested in inner development, being more interested in the source of the soul. And I hope this will help us to find deeper values and a deeper source of meaning in our own existence, because so many people are just we're running after security, running after materialistic desires, running after money, running after possessions. And hopefully this lockdown will help people to slow down and maybe to think more deeply about the big fundamental spiritual questions, which is, who am I and why do I exist? And it's my belief, if we don't know who we are and we don't know why we exist, how can we possibly know what we should do with the life we've been given? If we don't know who we are, we don't know why we exist, how can we possibly know what to do with the life we've been given? Right. So many people are just running around like programmed. I need to get a good education so I can get a good job, so I can get married, so I can have kids, so they can get a good education, so they can get a job, so they can get married, so they can have kids. And it goes on forever. So you say, very good, but why? Why do I want to do that?
Yeah.
Why do I want to do that? Who am I and why am I here? Why does the universe exist? What's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of existence? Why do I exist? Am I here just to make money and make babies and to eat good food? Or is there a deeper purpose in the fact that I exist? So I hope this crisis will help more people to think more deeply about the most important questions, which is who am I and why am I here?
As a matter of fact, Andrew, in fact, all of us who are a part of PSSM or who have been, attracted to meditation and who have been meditating for quite some time now, these are the pertinent questions which have arisen in people's minds. This is what has attracted all of us into meditation. What is the purpose of life and why are we here? And what happens after we die? These are the most pertinent questions that have been constantly, cropping up in all our minds. And meditation has helped us in, finding out the answers to these questions. And I'm sure as a collective consciousness, humanity is waking up to this pertinent question.
We hope so.
Yes.
Because sometimes fear and great suffering can help people to wake up, but not always. Sometimes when the fear and the suffering goes away, people go back to sleep again. So sometimes fear and suffering can wake people up in a dramatic way. And let's hope that this terrible crisis will help more and more people to wake up and to want to wake up.
So Andrew, having said that, I would request you to please share your experience when you were all 16 years of age and you had that revelation of cosmic consciousness, and also your experience when you met your guru, Shri Harivansh Lalji Punja, and what changed in you, what was that awakening in you which sparked you onto this spiritual journey. We would all love to hear that.
When I was at the big conference you guys had in Hyderabad, I spoke for a long time about that. So I'll just speak very briefly, that when I was 16, I had an experience where I suddenly realized, it just happened suddenly for no reason. I don't know the reason, but I realized that the whole universe was a cosmic being. The universe was a conscious, self-aware, intelligent being. And this cosmic being was experienced as a kind of impersonal, absolute love that was physically unbearable to experience because it was so intense. I realized when I was experiencing this love and that there was no such thing as death. Death has no meaning. There is no death and there is no birth. And I realized that all points in space are exactly the same place, that from the perspective of this cosmic being, which is the nature of everything. This cosmic being is the nature of everything. There's no here and there's no there. There's no here and there's no there. Everywhere we go, everywhere we possibly can go in time and space, we're always there or here. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go and there's nowhere to go because we're always absolutely at the center of the universe. So this being was self-aware, and this being was a kind of love that crushes the mind into out of existence. The mind disappears, and all there is love. And this is what I realized, and it was so powerful. It changed absolutely everything for me. That's when I decided I wanted to become an enlightened person. And when I met my guru, he reintroduced me to this same truth. It was he sitting in his presence. He reintroduced me to this absolute truth, to this ultimate truth about the nature of reality. He reawakened me to what I had already realized when I was a young man. And through his grace, that realization became stabilized in my soul. And that was about 35 years ago.
Wow. that must have been one good experience, I'm sure.
Well, when this happens to you, you can't go back to who you thought you were. Once you wake up to who you really are, you can't go back anymore. There's no way back to the dream of being a unique individual, because now you realize I am the creator. I'm the energy and intelligence that created the universe and is creating the universe. This is mine. I am everyone, and I am the whole universe. And this is all my responsibility, because there's only one creator. In Vedanta, we constantly hear that the ultimate truth is that there's only one. Vedanta tells us that there is only one. And when we understand that there is only one truth, and that there's only one I in the whole universe, in the entire universe, there's only one subject. And I am that. I am that one without a second, which also means I am the only one that could have chosen to create this whole universe, because there isn't anybody else except me. So when I realize I'm the only one who could have chosen to give rise to this entire creative process, this reorganizes one's thinking in a way that is very profound, because one realizes this is my creation, and therefore this is an enormous responsibility to create the world in the most beautiful possible way I could imagine. And so when this happens to somebody, they give their life to creating heaven on earth. And all great realizers want to give rise to utopia. They want the perfection that they've realized in their own experience of higher states of consciousness. They want that vision to become actualized in a very loving, kind, and compassionate and infinitely creative human world. And all great realizers want to create utopia on earth, want to create heaven on earth. And that's why they help people to do that in the same way, for example, Patriji's helped people with meditation, so people can have that same vision and want to help co-create utopia, co-create heaven on earth with him. And then together, all of the practitioners gather together with their master in order to give rise to this unique spiritual vision of utopia or heaven. And that's what the disciples of Jesus did with Jesus. That's what the disciples of the Buddha did with the Buddha. And that's what the disciples of Patriji are doing with him. It happens as a universal manifest expression of enlightenment, that the realizer transmits his vision of utopia, his experience of utopia, to his disciples. And the disciples realize that vision, and then they want to give rise to that vision with their bodies and their minds and their souls. And together, the Sangha, or the students of the great realizer, together they give rise to a vision of utopia in the kind of relationships they have with each other. The world becomes changed through the kind of relationships realized beings have with each other. And it's a vision of utopia, it's a vision of heaven on earth. And the spiritual vision, the vision that we experience in consciousness is a vision of perfection. It's an inner vision of perfection. And when we've experienced the inner vision of perfection, we want to do nothing but manifest that perfection in the world that we give rise to. So inwardly we experience perfection, and outwardly we want to manifest the perfection that we see within us. And when we can do that with other people, when people together try and create an expression of the perfection that they see inwardly in the world around them, they want heaven to exist on earth. And all the greatest realizers have had a vision of utopia, a vision of perfection, a vision of heaven. And I think ultimately that's what we're here to do, is to make earth into a true paradise.
Andrew, since we're talking about evolution, there have been in the past a couple of masters who have gained that power, that spiritual power, but somehow, somewhere, that spiritual power has been misused. So, is this also a part of the evolution of enlightenment?
Well, I think that all human beings are inherently imperfect. So human beings we can realize perfection. We can experience perfection. We can realize perfection. But inherent in being human is imperfection, because all human beings are works in progress. So this is also true for human beings who have powerful spiritual experiences. We can have powerful spiritual experiences and still be imperfect human beings. And imperfect human beings are capable of making mistakes. It's also part of being human. Perfection is a state of consciousness. There's no human being that is perfect. Consciousness is perfect. And the realization of in the realization of consciousness, we can experience perfection. But human beings by nature are inherently imperfect.
So we're allowed to make mistakes.
It's not a matter of being allowed to make mistakes or not. Making mistakes is part of the learning process. It's how we learn, it's how we grow. And ideally, if we make mistakes and learn from them, then it's all for the good. But if we look at the evolution of human consciousness, we can see that there's been a learning process for the last 5,000 years, 4,000 years, 3,000 years, 2,000 years, 1,000 years, 500 years. The last 300 years, 200 years, 100 years, there's been a human consciousness has been in a process of evolution, development, and growth through different stages of consciousness, different stages of growth. And those different stages of consciousness and stages of growth are able to happen because there is an individual and collective learning process. And the collective learning process is the evolution of consciousness. And this is also learning how to live the human experience in a better way, in a way that is more wise, that is more compassionate, that is more loving, that's more inclusive. So I think the human experience is a learning process, and making mistakes is part of how human beings learn. And sometimes we make terrible mistakes. Sometimes as human beings, we make absolutely terrible mistakes. But we even need to see the worst mistakes, ideally, hopefully, as part of a larger process of learning. For example, the atomic bomb was dropped only twice. And so it seems that what we realized when those bombs were dropped was an energy that was so powerful. It seems that, looks like, we realized that this is a power that's too much. We don't ever want to do that again. And so far, knock on wood, we haven't, which is a miracle. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. We haven't destroyed we haven't destroyed ourselves. This is a great miracle, and you can see it's a great accomplishment. So we could see that as a part of learning. And in human beings, there's less war on the planet now than there's ever been. There's less fighting, there's less war, there's less genocide, there's less killing, there's less murder, there's less violence than there ever has been. There's a great psychologist from Harvard University called Steven Pinker, who wrote a book about the evolution of violence. And he's done a lot of research, and this whole book is called The Better Angels of Our Nature. And The Better Angels of Our Nature, he explains how, through many statistics, that violence has been decreasing as human consciousness has been evolving. And so it's a lot of human beings don't realize that, but the human world that we live in is a safer place to be in relationship to violence than it's ever been. The world is more peaceful than it's ever been, in spite of the fact that we're aware that there's so many problems that we're confronting with the environmental catastrophe that we're facing, and obviously this global pandemic, and there's so much inequality and there's so many problems. In spite of that, in so many ways, human life is so much better and so much more fair and so much more ethical than it's ever been. So as a species, we are learning and we're evolving, in spite of the fact that there's still many problems that we have to solve.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Andrew, for your wonderful wisdom. It was an absolute pleasure having you. And we would like to close the session here, where we have other masters waiting. And thank you so much, so much. And it was a pleasure listening to you. And you answered so many of our questions. And I'm sure there's a lot more that we can get from you. And I hope that we can get in touch with you some other time, and you can answer to many more of our questions.
Thank you. It's been an honor, and thank you, Patrickji.
Thank you, sir. You have been great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keep it up. Keep up your spirit like this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's an honor very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's a paradox.
Totally.
It's all about the paradox.
A huge paradox. Huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mind-boggling paradox.
Good. It is so, because we can't understand it.
We can see it, but we'll never understand it. We can only recognize it.
We can feel that it is a paradox. Yes.
Indeed. Indeed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It is our honor.
Thank you. Honor is mine.